Look at any ancient ruin, and the first thing you notice is the physical decay. Historians often read the religions that emerged from these same ancient stones as collections of myths and moral codes. But these structures can also be viewed as highly engineered architectural blueprints, software systems designed to keep the human mind from collapsing. Think of human consciousness as an information processing system. Left to its own devices, a bounded mind is highly vulnerable to entropy, the natural tendency of a system to slide into fragmentation and disorder. The traditional concept of sin maps directly onto this systems-level failure. In this framework, sin acts as an entropic initialization state, a corrupted operating environment where the cognitive system boots up already biased toward failure and breakdown. This approach defines religion as an operational coherence protocol. It uses rituals, narratives, and community rules as a set of constraints built to actively regulate noise and prevent the human cognitive system from failing under pressure. The Christian architecture, which we can call ChristOS, functions as an external rescue protocol. It assumes that a corrupted system cannot self-bootstrap or restart itself into a healthy state from the inside. It requires a clean signal from outside the failure condition to intervene and stabilize the hardware. This flowchart illustrates the ChristOS coherence loop. It begins at the top as the cognitive system experiences fragmentation. Trapped, it requires external intervention, atonement, to supply new coherence. The lower half shows the result. The system realigns reference points, achieving reintegration and a stabilized identity. When viewed through this lens, rituals like communion and confession function as mechanical error correction loops, scheduled maintenance routines for the mind. But if Christianity operates like a software system, how has its underlying code been updated and patched over the last 2,000 years? This manuscript from the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition represents the system's alpha build. It is the oldest and broadest scriptural collection preserved today, functioning as a massive, unpruned codebase with an incredibly high level of detail. This alpha build featured high diagnostic resolution. Using texts like the Book of Enoch, it provided intense threat modeling, mapping out cosmic adversaries and specific system breaches to explain exactly how disorder infiltrates human behavior. While this build was precise, its informational density made it operationally heavy. The complexity of the data structure made the entire framework difficult to manage and distribute. The alpha build was effective for diagnosing threats in a localized environment. However, as the system prepared to scale across emerging global empires, that massive data payload proved too unwieldy for efficient distribution. The creation of the Septuagint in the 3rd century BCE, the translation of Hebrew texts into Greek, served as the first major architectural migration. Hebrew syntax relied on concrete physical blocks describing actions and processes. In contrast, Greek operated on abstract conceptual registers. When the code was ported over, the physical language of the original text dissolved into floating networks of philosophical concepts. This created what engineers call compiler drift, where the meaning of a program subtly changes during the translation process. This semantic remapping permanently altered the environment in which the religious doctrines would run. The transition to Greek provided a required platform shift. By moving into the conceptual lingua franca of the Mediterranean, the ChristOS operating system could successfully boot up on the hardware of the Greco-Roman world. As the world moved toward institutional stability, the Roman Catholic framework emerged as the enterprise edition of ChristOS, a standardized, optimized version of the original system. Tracing the top row from the translation to institutional layer, we see the pruning of the alpha build's complex threat modeling. Moving down, the doctrinal and structural flattening node shows Creedal abstraction, compressing complex narratives into standardized doctrines easily deployed across a vast hierarchy. The Enterprise Edition made a calculated trade-off. It sacrificed high-resolution diagnostic data to achieve maximum survivability. This streamlined code provided the stability and trans-regional scalability needed to outlast the collapse of empires. Modern English translations, like the 1611 King James Bible, represent the final paraphrase layer. At this level, the focus shifted entirely towards accessibility for a mass market audience. The cost of this accessibility was extreme syntax flattening. Much of the raw informational fidelity from the original source code was traded away so that the framework could be understood by the widest possible user base. Looking at this 2,000-year history of pruning and abstraction, it is easy to assume the original religion was lost. A systems audit reveals a different story. ChristOS survived through constant adaptation, shedding data weight and shifting syntax to withstand the specific entropic pressures of each new era. The historical forms and languages mutated, but the operational core remained stable. The underlying algorithm designed to catch a fragmenting human mind and preserve its identity against the noise of entropy has run for 2 millennia without interruption.